Hello, everybody. Welcome to ScreenFlow Live on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. I'm here joined by my friend Curtis. We'll get into exactly who he is in just a second, but today is all about an interview with this guy, a professional editor. So stick around. We'll be doing mainly a Q&A with Curtis. So we'll see some of his work, and we'll learn what it's like to be a real editor in this world of video. So stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We just got both caught taking a sip of water there. So yeah, before we get into the meat of it today, I just want to make sure that you guys remember, we stream on Facebook, we stream on YouTube, we stream on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at ScreenFlow. You can find us on, that's Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at ScreenFlow. Facebook, facebook.com/ScreenFlow. And also on YouTube, you just type in ScreenFlow Tube. That is the name of our channel. And if you want to be updated with when we go live with the ScreenFlow Live show, you can sign up at there should be a link at the bottom of the screen, and you can click on that link or type that into your browser and fill out the form, and we'll send you an email when we are going live. As always, I'm going to be monitoring the comments here to make sure that if anybody asks a question, we will get it answered. And I have a ton of questions for Curtis, and hopefully you guys do as well. And be sure to put those into the comments box, and we'll answer them as much as we can. But this is a little bit different than the normal show we do. We're not going to spend a lot of time in ScreenFlow. We're going to spend more time thinking about editing and how that really is something that you can go from being an amateur to a medium professional editor like I am, where I work here and I do a lot of editing, but I'm not necessarily a full editor, all the way to what you do, Curtis, as a real-time editor. So introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What's your deal?
So I'm from Grass Valley, the hometown of Telestream. I've worked a lot in San Francisco and New York City, and I'm a feature film and television editor. I also do shorts. I go back and forth between docs and narrative projects.
Cool. How did you get into editing? Is this something that you've been doing like since the beginning of time? Were you always an editor?
I think the interest started in high school. Had like a kind of a video newsroom television class.
Mm-hmm.
Got started with that, and then kind of pursued it in college a little bit. And then after that, kind of got into editing and knew that that's where I wanted to go.
Do you remember what program you were using the first time you ever edited a video?
Oh man,
because I sort of remember what I used. I'll get to that in a second.
I want to say it's called Media 100.
Media 100. Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, you might have to Google that. I want to say it was called Media 100.
Yeah, editing software, nonlinear editing system. Look at that. I wonder if it's still around. Looks pretty normal. If you guys just type into Google, you can find Media 100 as an editing program.
Yeah, so that was in high school. Started with the Media 100, and then college. I think that's when you got started in like Final Cut.
Mm-hmm. Mac user yourself?
Yeah. Was started with this as a PC, but then once I got heavy into video workflows, it's been pretty much all Mac.
Definitely Mac. I remember the first editing project I ever did was in a high school class. We were making like a Great Gatsby themed like video or something, and we had in the library at my high school this like all-in-one editing box with like a track ball and no other programs on it. It was like a computer specifically built for this editing program, and it was super I only now just remember it. I have no idea what it was called, but I had to learn that program just to edit my like 3-minute video.
Yep.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal, but we've come a long way. And one thing I do want to point out is that this is ScreenFlow Live. I love ScreenFlow. I use it all the time, but that isn't Curtis's main way of editing, and I just wanted to be upfront. We're not here to say that Curtis is a professional editor and he's using ScreenFlow all day long. What is it that you do use on a regular basis?
These days it's mostly Premiere, Adobe Premiere, but I do sometimes switch depending on the production house I'm at, or if they already have a project already set up. Sometimes they'll go into Avid. Haven't done much with Final Cut 10 yet, but I used to be a big Final Cut user.
Awesome.
Up until they canned 7.
Yeah.
But so these days it's mostly Premiere.
Awesome. And the reason why I brought you in here is because a couple weeks ago you had said, hey, can I get a license for ScreenFlow? I need to do something. What was it that you needed to use ScreenFlow for in your normal workflow?
So for that instance, I was doing a short doc on these professional esports players, professional video gamers.
Oh, I know all about them.
Yep. All right.
Oh, yeah.
And they use YouTube and Twitch to reach their audiences a lot.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be great and that's a part of their everyday lives, and kind of part of their business strategy and all that. So
it is the hub of that whole world.
Yes, exactly.
You gotta be in on that.
So I was like, how do I? And they didn't. The director, producers, they didn't shoot any like screen footage, any computer screen footage of them playing online, or them playing like on their own computers type of thing. So I thought it would be cool to get some like footage off of YouTube and Twitch.
So you use the screen recording function.
So I use the screen recording function on ScreenFlow.
That's awesome. Yeah, so when ScreenFlow was first made, however many years ago, the focus was mainly on the screen recording function. But as time has gone on, it's evolved into a more and more powerful editor. And sometimes, a lot of the time, we find that our users don't even really use the screen recording function. I mean, I use it all the time when I do tutorials, but they'll use it just to make videos, and it's cool to hear that you're going back to the roots of ScreenFlow, actually using it as a screen recorder to pull in new content into these professional projects. So I've always thought that the job of an editor was a very odd thing. Like I can't imagine like sitting down for 8 hours a day and editing video. Or 10 hours. So that's really what it is. You just sit there for that long editing video.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I got a standing up desk too, so I can kind of go back and forth. But yes, it is. It can be intense every day.
Do you struggle with that?
Not as much as I used to, like starting out. Now it's you kind of get into the groove, and that it's gonna could be a grind depending on what stage of the project you're in, but you just kind of settle in and go for it. When you're making a lot of edits and stuff and making a lot of creative decisions, like time definitely goes by faster. And
I can agree with that. And when I get into the zone, you'll be like, wow, I got all this done, but I haven't even eaten lunch, and it's like 3:30 in the afternoon. Where did my day go?
Oh my God!
You just lose yourself.
That's a problem every day. If I don't have anything to eat before sitting down, 12, 1 o'clock, I haven't eaten anything, and I'm like, oh, I guess I get a lot of work done now.
And so I'm going to ask you a lot of questions that might be hard to quantify or might be hard to give an exact answer. But if we look at a day like that, an 8-hour or a 10-hour day, if you're editing all day long, what is the final output of something like that? Are you editing 30 seconds in a 10-hour span, or are you editing 10 minutes worth of content?
It is a little hard to quantify. It's it kind of depends on so a lot of the projects I've been working on recently have been 5 to 7 minute pieces. So the project's not really that long, but I don't spend my whole day actually piecing things together. Some of it at the beginning of a project, it's going through the transcripts, pulling the sound bites that I think are going to work to make the story we're going for.
Yeah.
So, some days I may actually edit 30 seconds worth of something. Other days I'll put a whole scene together. And then the next day you come back and refine that. It kind of depends on just what media is available then, what stage of the production you're at.
And when you say come back and refine something, in the work that I do personally, and I can really only speak to my own experience here, it's not often that I'll finish something and then come back and have a lot of refining work to do. Because I do a lot of like tutorials or something. I've recorded the screen, I've recorded myself, and I've executed the process that I want to show people. And if I was to sit down the next day and be like, all right, how can I make this better? Maybe I can tighten things up a little bit here and there, but I can't imagine that would be a lot of work for me. So what do you mean when you go back and you refine something? What does that process look like?
So so working on a lot of documentary stuff. So it's, you kind of, we start with calling it like a string out, all the sound bites.
A string out.
Yeah, it's basically your timeline with all the sound bites just laid out. And then from there, you need to add the B-roll, you add voiceover, music to it. But because it's documentary, you're kind of writing the script, writing the story as you're going along.
So that happens during the editing process.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've always wondered that too. Like you watch a documentary and there's no narrator. But they're telling a story through all of these different pieces of audio content. And I always thought, do they like sit down in a room with 8 people and they're like, this is the story we're telling and this goes here? Or is that the editor's job?
That's, on some productions, yeah, like the producers, directors, editors, everybody will get together and say like, this is kind of where we'd like to head. And then once you get into the editing room, that's what you start to try to go for. And then when you're in there, things change.
Yeah.
Maybe one guy's story isn't working as well. Maybe someone else's story is like really good. You hadn't quite realized that when you were on location shooting it, but when you put it in the edit, you're like, oh,
put some nice music actually to the background. You're like, damn, it's really getting.
Yep,
getting
exactly.
My heart
like that.
racing. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that emotional when we were just sitting there. He was sitting on his couch interviewing him, but that's actually really good.
Yeah.
So we do build a lot of it in the editing room.
Yeah, that's funny. I've always watched video or movies like that and just been so. My mind is just so. I'm so impressed by the process to come out with no linear storytelling device except for just the perfect timing of all this stuff together.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have a question there. I'm just impressed by it. I think it's really awesome. So going back to we got off on a little tangent. The refining part. When you come back in, does that mean you're like, oh, I just want to take, a half a second off of this clip and maybe move this one a little bit later? Is that the kind of refining process you mean?
Yeah, there's that, but there's also, that's a lot of it, but there's also, like I feel like this part here drags a little bit. Like it was keeping momentum until he says this, or until it feels like it slows down a little bit. So then you got to go in and like, all right, do I just remove it? Is that important to the story? So maybe it has to stay in. What can we do to where that scene maybe doesn't slow down, or that chunk of the scene kind of keeps the flow going? And then maybe like if it's a comedy, maybe the joke's not hitting quite right. So then you're going in there and you're definitely refining the timing of it.
Oh, that's right. You have complete control over that. If a stand-up comedian doesn't deliver it at the right time, you miss that moment, but you can change it in the editing process.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if like a narrative comedy, you get the joke, which is great, but in comedy you want to pack as many jokes in as you can. But you don't want to stack them up too much to where the audience's laughter, they're laughing so hard that you don't hear the next joke, or you don't hear the start of the next joke. So that's something that I didn't realize in comedies before I started working on them. I was like, oh, yeah, you kind of got to think
about that. Yeah. I've actually had those experiences. I guess now I can take a step back and be like, that was a bad editing job. Because you're laughing and then suddenly you're like, wait, what did he just say? And you're like, I don't know. Why is everybody laughing again? I missed that whole process.
And if you miss the beginning of the joke or the setup, then...
Luckily on Netflix, you just flick it back real fast. In your 10 seconds, you can watch it again.
Exactly.
But that's not always been that easy. So it sounds like when you're doing these documentary projects, you have quite a bit of creative freedom when it comes to telling the story. Is that similar on something that is scripted already, more of a like a feature production, like a movie kind of thing, as opposed to a documentary?
You have a little less freedom in the fact that like there's already a script. And usually the director has a very good sense of what they want. But that's kind of part of it. So then your job is trying to kind of get it to their vision, or as close to their vision as you can. That doesn't mean you're just sitting there doing necessarily everything that they tell you to do. You're still, with most directors and good directors, you'll still be allowed and afforded creative input.
Yeah.
You don't win every battle,
You've got
but
to be.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's not. Otherwise, it's going to come out very rigid and stiff because you're like, okay, I did exactly what you wanted, but it's not flowing. I need to change this, right?
Yeah, and that's also why they hire you. Is like because you have certain sensibilities, and if they trust you, then it usually seems to work out. But it's definitely collaborative. I mean, it's collaborative on docs too, absolutely. It's just with the narrative stuff, you kind of have more of a guideline starting out, I guess.
It's got to be a little bit more. Otherwise, you miss the original writer's intentions, right?
Absolutely.
So I was going to maybe transition. We've got up on our hang on a second. How do I close these things? Come on, Mac.
It's just like my computer.
Yeah, just constantly trying to tell us to do something else. All right, so we've got here Curtis's website, hatsoverthewall.com. If you guys want to go there, you can. We're going to show maybe a little bit of the things that he's created in the past, but I wanted to just emphasize for all of you watching, please ask us any questions you want to ask Curtis. If for some crazy reason you have a question for me, go ahead and ask me too. But Curtis is the one with the really smart sense of editing. Michael Glasser has said something. Hang on a second. I found when I was doing large projects, it took about 1 hour per minute of screen time. This was with screencast tutorials. That included planning, recording, re-recording, editing, all that kind of stuff. What do you find it takes per minute? Though I guess yours will be different because you're editing and not doing the full writing, recording. So we talked about that a little bit, but if you could reach out there and grab a number on one of these projects, maybe we think about, maybe it's better to look at this project here and say, okay, the story of Diana, this was a really cool one. Curtis is on my soccer team, and we lost him for how long?
Like 4 months.
4 months, because he had to move to New York to edit this, which was just recently on ABC. If anybody watched it on ABC, a documentary about Princess Diana, Curtis edited part of it. So I'm gonna play this in the background. I'm gonna maybe turn it down just a little bit here.
Turning down Gloucester Road.
And we can
Dying
just
the kids.
see. So, what was the process for creating this?
So this started with.
If you're not royal blood,
So if I'm trying to recall this. It was a couple months ago. So we had. Okay, so we were. This is kind of centers around her trip to Libya, where she went and talked, advocated for landmines, to get rid of landmines, removal of landmines, and all that. So that was kind of the main emphasis of that. But to get there, we also had to talk about like kind of what drove her there. So this is the part where it's right after her divorce. The media just went, they thought, oh, maybe it might calm down, but it got worse. So once she was divorced, she lost her Royal Highness title, and that's when the media just like, so she lost all of her protection basically. So we had to kind of set that up that, she was having to deal with all this before going to Libya and
here she is, like running from the paparazzi.
I'm sorry, it's not Libya, it's Angola.
Angola. Okay.
It's been a while.
So it almost sounds like you had to learn all of this stuff beforehand.
A little bit, yeah.
Outside of the video editing process, the production, you had to learn about Princess Diana.
Yeah. And what was nice is we had these interviews, so we would go through the transcripts, and myself and our two producers that I had in the room with me, we would kind of pour through the transcripts and say, okay, like, that person says a good bite here about Angola. This person says a good bite here about the paparazzi going after her. And then we kind of just put all that in a Word document. And then from there, we moved the pieces around. And then once we kind of liked that, that's when I started grabbing it and then kind of putting it together. We watch it. Okay, you know what? That actually doesn't make sense here, that what that person is saying. Let's get rid of it. Condense it, because it's I think this ended up being like a 7-minute chunk of the doc in between commercials, and at one point I think it was like 13 minutes long, so we knew we were going to drastically have to cut it down.
Oh wow, and you edit for commercials too?
Yes. Well, some shows you have a certain amount of time between commercials. Because this was a 2-part 4-hour special, they kind of said, you have to have 5 commercial breaks. We don't care where you put them.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be, there just needs to be 5, and you can't have a section shorter than 4 minutes.
Okay.
So that was kind of nice to really have that
That seems
freedom.
like a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, it was really great.
And so you did 2 hours worth of this? You edited 2 hours?
I edited 1 hour.
1 hour. That was the whole project in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So hang on a second. I'm gonna do. So it's okay.
10-hour days.
I did some really quick math here. Oh wait, hang on. And it's possible I got my math wrong. But it seems like you spent about 10 hours per minute.
Wow.
That timing could be wrong. I did it really quickly while trying to listening to you as well.
Okay. Yeah,
But I
yeah.
said, okay, you're there for 4 months. Let's say you worked 8-hour days, you said?
10.
Oh, geez. It might be even more than that, actually. Because I was giving you, okay, let's say you work 20 hours a day, or 20 days a month, and at 8 hours a day, it comes out to about 10.5 hours per minute. But maybe that's more like 11 or 12 hours per minute.
I mean, we had, like, my hour covered, I want to say 4 to 5 years of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the most photographed woman in the world.
That's
There was a
unreal,
lot.
man.
I had one timeline, one sequence that was 22 hours of footage. That was one timeline.
And you had to watch it all?
Not all. I had an assistant who
Yeah.
helped me out a lot. But I did have to go through a lot of it. Absolutely.
Jeez, that sounds intense.
Yeah, it was. I mean, especially when you're trying to find like very specific B-roll for a very, certain reason. Like you gotta dig. But I got lucky. I only had like probably 5 years of her life. A couple of the other hours covered a decade, maybe.
Yeah.
And you can just imagine how much footage they had to go through.
Dude, I don't even like looking at the footage that I create for the videos I make, and I know what it is, So I noticed one part of the video here that I wanted to look at again, and this has been something that's been really difficult for me in the past. Here we go.
Cast off everyone, but one
Using
photographer had
still
spotted them.
photographs
This photographer literally
in
stood
a
there.
moving
Clack, clack,
video.
clack, 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 clack.
Like, that was really
And
cool,
you
that
think
effect that you
yourself,
did right there.
he
And
must
I like that,
realize
but then you also have ones, there was one a
that's
little
an
bit
awful-
earlier, like this one right here, where it's just like one long shot. And how do you incorporate these static images into a moving video without like slowing down the tempo of the video or making it less exciting? It's something that I struggle with. Suddenly I have all these people moving and talking, and then there's a picture. Like, how do you keep that excitement going?
Music can help a lot.
Yeah.
Music also, kind of like this is the move, and in this part, all the interviews are talking about how things were getting so crazy for her, and the paparazzi were just
guerrilla, it was almost like
relentless, and there were
warfare.
no boundaries anymore. So in this shot, it's a nice zoom. You can kind of see that she's in that little corner there,
Yeah.
just surrounded, and like that called for a slow push-in because I was going, hopefully you wanted the audience to feel claustrophobic, or as claustrophobic as you could convey in that.
Yeah.
I remember she was.
And then this
pictured
next sequence where you
going
put a whole
to-
bunch
I think
together,
it
what was
a
the
bookshop.
feelings
She
you were going
managed
for
to
there?
cast off
So that
everyone,
was,
but one photographer had spotted
Stalking.
her.
The paparazzi were
This
stalking
photographer
her. So
literally stood there.
I believe that's a series of different photos. There are a few
And
that
you
I
think to
duplicated
yourself,
Yeah.
and
you know,
just
you must realise
used different
that
parts of it.
That's
Yeah, I
an
framed it
awful
differently,
thing to do,
and then
right in
added
her
the
face, right
I guess it's like
up
the
close.
camera flash effect to
Yeah.
it.
That was
But
what
yeah, that
people
was just
wanted.
kind of.
They were
And you
tired
could hear
of
the sounds
fake,
of the camera clicking, kind
all
of just
glossed
relentless,
up,
click,
beautiful
click,
shot.
click,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just
They
kind
wanted
of
to see
constant,
reality.
and it
They
got
wanted to see them
closer
in their day-to-day
Yep.
activity.
as
Felt
it
that
went.
too.
So
That
you
was
could
going
kind
It felt
of
like
the
you
way
were
that we were gonna
chasing
see
her
celebrities
Yeah.
along
in the
with the
future.
photographers.
exactly.
I feel like we're all
Exactly.
complicit in some way.
So you kind of just try to. I mean, still photos can be hard, especially if you have to use a lot of them.
Yeah.
You just kind of gotta try to think of like interesting ways to incorporate them.
Yeah. I find it difficult. Next time I come around, maybe I'll call you up, be like,
All right.
"Curtis, need some help with this photo, man."
Sure.
Pick another one out here. What do you think? What do you think might be cool to talk about? Maybe more artistic, or something that you did a long time ago. Something that was really impactful in the way that you edit. Was there anything here that was really powerful to you?
So Hard Time was a show for National Geographic I worked on. I was an assistant on this show for a couple of years before moving up to editor. And this was kind of where I cut my teeth in doc editing. We spent 6 months at the Las Vegas County Correctional Facility.
Were you there on
I
premise?
was not.
Okay, I was going to say, it didn't seem like you needed to be.
No, I was not. The crew rented a place in Vegas and stayed there, and we're there almost every day for about 6 months. But this is kind of where I learned a lot about doc story and pacing. And this is a scene from that. I believe there's, there's music under here, and you hear like this guy starts to rap underneath it. And just kind of trying to build that tension of all these inmates being in one room. Here's the guy rapping.
I have a question about something I just saw there.
Mm-hmm.
This transition right here. The fade to white.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a problem personally with my editing, and where I never use anything other than a cross dissolve or like a fade in between the two.
Okay.
Because I've never been able to, like right there, I only noticed it because I was looking for something like that. But I've never been able to use a transition that was like that didn't just feel super tacky. So why did you settle on that? What was I mean, maybe this was a long time ago, you're not sure exactly, but what am I trying to say here? What allows you to use different kinds of transitions when you're editing?
A lot of it is, kind of, I guess you'd say, the tone of the piece. Hard Time, you're in prison, you're in jail. So things are,
Unit
there's a lot of
2P
grit,
is a
a lot
test
of
case.
danger,
An open
a lot
house
of
unit
violence.
filled with high security inmates.
So I'm thinking there, like it kind of,
Repeat offenders, felons,
bright light in your
gang
eyes kind of
members.
made sense.
All
I saw
calls
again.
filled with high
This shot
security
looks like almost
inmates.
overexposed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you would do personally yourself, or did the footage come to you really white like that?
That was something that the colorist did.
Oh, there's a colorist.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with you. They just only work on the coloring.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that.
Yeah. So
That's a specific job.
for bigger jobs like television especially, but for movies too, if you've got the budget for it, you hand it over to a colorist and they can do. I mean, I do a certain amount of color work myself, but colorists, I mean, that's what they do every day, and they're amazing.
That is
Security
incredible. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
There's so much of the video production process that is
all call
hidden
this door
from the general public. If you're not in on it, you don't realize what it takes.
The cell blocks
I
on the
always
higher
used to think that
security
there was
side
like
of
a
the
million
jail
people
undergo
editing
renovations.
videos. If I go and watch Guardians of the Galaxy 2, how many editors is on
Including
this
staff
project?
like
Is it 100 editors? Is it 5?
on guard.
Action movies, sometimes there's
myself,
there's 2 or 3
with 74
there's also
inmates.
I mean,
One more time,
these big
Joe's
action
on
movies,
deck,
you've
get
got
your
all the
neighbors up.
different editors working on, and animators.
Yeah,
and
of course.
stuff,
Maybe
you
those
know.
aren't the best examples, but turn down audio from the videos. Yeah, we're having some perfect.
But there's usually like 1 or 2 kind of probably main editors that kind of oversee the whole thing.
Yeah. For some reason, as a kid growing up, I used to think there was just like an army of people
A
sitting in
team.
front of computers, like collaboratively editing. I'm not sure why I thought that, but there was one here that I wanted to show. This one, mainly because I can't tell you what all of our viewers do and everything that they talk about and the kinds of videos that they make, but a lot of the times we have small business owners that create videos for their business. And I didn't get to fully watch this, but it almost looks like when we watched seconds of this, it looked like this could have been a marketing
person is
video.
walking around with a
Even
large
though it's
community
more of
up
a
to 10
documentary,
million
like news type
bacteria
of
both
thing,
in
like
and on
this
our
would
body.
look good if
You
I
wanna
was to
think
put
about
this
that
on
in
my
terms of weight. Your brain
my
is
website
probably
for
around
this test your
6
gut
pounds.
stuff.
And you probably
So,
have
is this-
at
is that
least
something you ever
that
look at and
weight
like,
of bacteria
do you
in
ever
and
think
on
of
you.
it from
So it's a
a
significant
marketing
part of
perspective,
what
or
we
are you
walk
just
around
like
with
strictly documentary?
every day.
Look at
This
well,
is Ubiome
this
in San
one.
Francisco.
I mean,
The
yeah, it's
first
definitely a
biotech
profile.
company to be
You know,
started
it's like a
with a
profile on
crowdfunding
this new
campaign.
company.
They're a big
and
bet
their emerging
that people will
technology.
want to pay
But
to find out what's in their
usually,
microbiomes, kind of like
I usually
people
come
pay
at
for
it
DNA
from
tests.
more of like a story
The
perspective.
microbiome
Okay.
is
what's the story we're trying to tell of this company or these people.
I'm not sure that's very far away from a marketing perspective, to tell you the truth.
Oh yeah, okay.
You know, we're trying to tell a story, wanna get people interested in what we're doing. It looks like I look at this. I can't hear the audio specifically right now, but turn down audio. I don't even know if I can turn down the audio. Sorry guys, if that's a little blown out there. Okay, looks like it's good now. But like this, if I went to their website, depending on maybe, you know, a little bit different of a voiceover, this looks like a really good video for trying to sell your product to somebody.
Medical information. You can involve their doctor.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they kind of feel the same way. We weren't necessarily trying to sell their product, but
trying
more
to expose it to more people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's this new kind of emerging technology, and Bloomberg thought that was interesting enough. You know, they did a lot of their videos coincide with an article they write.
Yeah, I don't know if they're telling us how to use it right now, but you told me a pretty awesome way of how they gather.
Yep, they are. We are explaining how you gather the samples here.
You got to swab your own poop, but, you know, it gives you lots of information. That's really cool. I just want to say one last time out there to people, if you want to ask any questions to Curtis, please throw them into the chat. Looks like not a lot of people chatting at the moment, so we might run out of questions here. But let me ask you the classic, most generic question of all interviews. But what is the most difficult part of being an editor?
The most difficult part.
Yeah.
You know what? Getting started. Like on you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Especially with documentary work, you know what the topic is, but you don't know you don't necessarily have like a good roadmap, or you do. You might have like, in this scene we want to show this, and we want to hit on these points, but okay, so that's what you want to do. But now I have this. A bunch of puzzle pieces. Man, what do I do with it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've always thought. Sorry to hijack your thought there, but
no.
The thing with starting something is that essentially what you're doing is impossible. You're taking the infinite possibility and condensing it down into a single product.
Yeah, I mean,
like
it's a blob of clay. What do you do with it?
How do you take every single possibility out there and make it into one thing? But the moment you make those first 3, 4, 5 decisions, you're like, oh, I'm on a track now. Now I can really just start chugging out what I'm working on. Absolutely,
yeah, and it's the same way with me. You know, I kind of, at this point, I have the process that I do, and you kind of just have to trust in the process and know that as you start to make decisions, things do start to fall into place. And
totally,
I was told, you know what, it sounds weird, but like the footage will start to speak to you, and it does. Like you can. If you're watching something and you're bored as the editor, you're the first audience member. So if you're bored, then everybody else is going to be bored.
Does that mean that when you're done editing, you watch it and you're like, "Damn, that was good. I liked it."
Well, hopefully that's the goal. That's the goal. But I mean, it's the same thing. If something's confusing or not making sense to you, chances are it's not going to make sense to anybody else either.
That's a very good point. Yeah, maybe I should think. Yeah, I find myself not wanting to watch what I've done ever again.
I like Diana, spent 4 months on it, watched it when it premiered, probably won't watch it for a very long time. Same with, the 7-minute piece I did last week. You're just like in that world for so long sometimes, or you watch it over and over. So once it's done, it's nice to move on.
Yeah.
It's fun to go back and watch your old stuff every once in a while, but it's also good to move on and find.
How often are you on the other side? Subject matter in a movie. You ever on screen?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Try and take that feeling and then flip it around, and then you got to watch what you edited, and it's your face on the screen.
Yes.
Oh my God, it kills me.
Lately, I've been doing tracking my own temp voiceover. So if it's for a project that has voiceover, I just use my voice so I can kind of start to time things out. And I've gotten to the point now to where it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah.
But it's still like sometimes when I play it back, I'm like, God, this is bad. I'm glad
Dude,
only
this
like
guy
2
is
people are
really
gonna see
bad at
this.
voiceovers, man. He needs to get a new job.
Yeah. So I can't imagine having to see myself as well. That would
It's very difficult, but it's a lot of fun. What are you gonna do? It's pretty cool. Michael Glasser says, "Do you watch others' work and more think?" Hang on a second. Do you watch others' work and think you could do it better, or get pressed by what you might learn?
I get impressed all the time. Yeah, all the time. There are certain things that I'll watch and I drive my wife crazy, but I'll be
You're
like,
like, oh, that was terrible.
yeah. I'm like, why did they do that? Like, and then I call it out, and so then it takes her out of the movie.
Oh man,
So-
I went to Universal Studios one time back in the day, and they showed us how they do like the overdubbing. And there was this great scene. Jim Carrey, he was like strapped to a pole in a windstorm, and he's screaming out there, and like clearly they didn't get the audio.
Right.
And then he dubbed it over later. And now, doesn't matter what movie I am, how immersed in it I am, if I see like that moment, he's clearly not talking right there, and they dubbed that over later, and it just takes me right out. Like those kind of things. When you start seeing that, it's almost a bummer.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And I try to, when I'm watching something for the first time, not be in that mode. But sometimes, I'm definitely like, oh, that was an odd choice. But a lot, sometimes I'm also like, man, that was awesome.
Is there like an editor out there that
good.
you're like, that guy is what I want to be as good as that dude or that woman, whoever it might be? There's not a lot of celebrity status
There's not a lot
in
of
the editing
celebrity.
world.
But yeah, there's like one guy that everybody knows. His name's Walter Murch. He worked on the Godfather films, and he was kind of like a pioneer. He's one of the first guys to cut a feature-length film on Final Cut to go digital.
Yeah.
And he just has a very scientific brain and a way of kind of attacking scenes. So I always think of him, but there aren't really, rock stars or well-known celebrities. But it's more just like the movies they work on. I mean, the Defiant Ones, if you saw that HBO documentary,
I haven't, no.
It's incredible. And just the editing in that, I remember going into work on Princess Diana, and we had all just watched it the night before, and we were just all the producers, editors were all talking about how just what a great job they did.
Yeah.
And it was, so I definitely get impressed by other people's
Is
work,
that-
and it's inspiring.
Do you ever watch the Oscars?
Oh yeah.
So they always have, best editing. And I have no idea how they, first of all, give an award, but second of all, even narrow it down. Like what are the things that people are looking for when you watch a movie and you say, oh, that was really good editing? Like for me, good editing would be that I didn't notice that there were any mistakes, or any weird moments.
Right.
So like if I didn't even think about it, then it was probably pretty good.
And that's
What
part
is
of it. That's a big part of it.
What is it that pushes it over the edge, in your opinion, to like a really great piece of art?
If I'm captivated the whole way through, if I've been moved, whether laughing, crying, and a lot of it, like if I don't notice the editing necessarily, then they've done a great job.
That
and they
seems
kind of
pretty-
say it's like an invisible art, and you don't, as an editor, you don't want people necessarily noticing or
Yeah.
consciously noticing
At the
your
end, being
editing.
like, I got to look up that guy. He was a good editor.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a director and a producer and you want to, you don't
as
want to
well.
hire me for the next thing. But you don't want someone to necessarily. The first thing they see after watching that movie is like, wow, that was edited really great. Unless you're an editing nerd like me, and then you kind of pick up on that stuff.
JF here wants to know, Curtis, did you get to see or meet Walter Murch?
I went to school at San Francisco State, and he came and spoke to us, I think once. It was mostly a conversation on a lot of his sound work, because he also does a lot of sound editing, sound design stuff as well. But he did get into picture editing. And I spoke with him very briefly afterwards.
Were you starstruck?
A little bit, because I had read a couple of his books, and this one I was just starting
In the
out.
blink of an eye?
In the blink of an eye, yes.
That was another follow-up question. You read that?
Yes, read the blink of an eye. Especially when I was starting out, I read it a couple times, and I still, to this day, use some of think about the way he attacks scenes sometimes, and he's like, put yourself in the picture or in the audience members, their point of view, and kind of go from there, and that's really a good place to start.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we could probably sit here for like 20 years and just keep talking and talking. But I think I'm going to say one last time to ask questions here if you want. Otherwise, I do want to remind everyone that you can follow us on Twitter @ScreenFlow, Facebook, facebook.com/ScreenFlow, YouTube. Our YouTube is ScreenFlowTube. And you can also sign up for notifications on, hopefully there's a link at the bottom of the screen here, and you can see where you can sign up to do all that kind of stuff. But I would say, Curtis, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome to pick your brain. I mean, if you guys have more questions, Curtis is a friend of mine, so you can ask me, and then I'll ask him, and then I'll relay it back to you. But
no problem.
Yeah, if anybody out there is looking to hire a professional editor, Curtis right here, he can hook you up. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Curtis, thank you for coming. And yeah, it looks like it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Any last words, Curtis?
I don't think so. This is fun.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. Bye, everybody.